Hey everybody, it's Matt Shu from Upright Health, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the best hip internal rotation stretch you have never ever done, never ever seen before. So if you're like me, you've spent a lot of time looking around the internet looking for hip internal rotation stretches. You found the ones that kind of hurt your knees, where you're kind of pulling this way and you just feel like, my knee is about to give out. You've probably done ones where you are lying face down and you're trying to spread your feet apart. You've probably done ones where you're seated and you're trying to spread your feet apart and you just feel like you're kind of wasting time. I'm not saying those stretches don't work for some people. I know they work for some people, but then there are people like you and me for whom it just doesn't seem to do that much. So that's where this stretch comes in. I was tooling around. I saw somebody do one little stretch that I thought was kind of effective, and then I thought, hey, if I can throw a weight into this, we can make this stretch super duper effective and make our hips super happy. So that's why I'm sharing it here with you. We've got this weight here. It's a 25-pound weight. If you are in the rest of the world that uses this so-called metric system, you're going to want to use about a 10-kilo plate. You could use heavier depending on how big a person you are. You might need to use heavier, so that's your call. What we're going to do is be on a padded surface or something that's relatively soft. It doesn't have to be like a bed, and it shouldn't actually be a bed, but something that's going to at least pad you so it's not going to be painful to be down on the floor. Take this weight. I'm going to stretch my left hip, and I'm going to put this weight on the heel of my left foot. Okay, so I've got it here on the floor. I got my knee here on the floor. Got my left hip down on the floor. At no point in this stretch should you feel any strain in the left knee. If you feel any strain, you need to readjust your position. Either bend your knee more, bend your knee less, reduce the intensity with which you're doing the next step. Whatever it is, be careful that you never feel it in the knee. That being said, this stretch seems to be the lowest impact on the knee for an internal rotation stretch that I have ever found and can come up with. So for now, this is probably the safest thing that you can do to stretch internal rotation and not make your knee feel like it's going to explode, which sounds good, right? Perfect. So got this down here. We're going to have the knee at about a 90-degree angle. And then I'm going to come down towards the floor. I'm going to go face down towards the floor. So I need to readjust my microphone here. All right, so we're going to come down towards the floor, just like so. I'm keeping my right leg up and over, and I can even try to reach it forward towards you in order to get my pelvis to twist so it's going so that the pubic bone is pointing down towards the floor. Right, so the idea here is as I'm going into this prone position, my leg is still trapped. My foot is still trapped. So the leg is being forced into internal rotation, but in a pretty safe way, right? Now, again, I said if you feel it in the knee, you need to adjust a little bit. I don't feel it in the knee, so I'm good. But if you do, you need to either bend the knee more, bend the knee less, or roll yourself out. The more you're rolled down into this prone position, the more stretch you're going to be getting. If you want to adjust and get different angles, which can be really helpful if you are having trouble with like deep squatting, or you're having trouble doing pivoting while you're pivoting on your front leg for either hockey or golf, you can adjust the angle. So the angle we're looking at right now is this hip angle, or the angle between the femur and the trunk. Okay, so from here to here right now when I'm starting, it's about 135 degrees. Now let's say I have trouble with deep squatting. I feel like my lateral rotators keep pulling my knees out. Well, then I need to do something to stretch those lateral rotators in that position. So how do I do that? Well, I need to get more hip flexion. So to do that, I'm going to start moving my upper body closer in. So now the angle between my femur and my trunk is much, much, much less, right? It's now going to a 90-degree angle, roughly. And then I can keep trying to go face down and keep trying to get the pelvis to come down so the pubic bone points down at the floor. Then I'm going to feel a big stretch, and I do feel a nice stretch in the lateral rotators of that left hip, okay? If you are particularly tight when you first start doing this, you may actually feel this stretch not in the lateral rotator, so I do want to make this clear. There are a bunch of deep hip rotators. You have obturators, you have gemellus inferior and superior, so you do need to be aware that you may feel kind of stretching weird sensation in the nether region. So if you're a man or a woman, you have these deep rotators that actually attach at the base of the pelvis in an area that can feel like it's kind of getting towards your naughty bits. And that's okay, especially initially. Those muscles have probably never, ever been stretched before. So if you're suddenly getting sensation in it, that's what's going on. What should happen is as you do the stretch more and more, you're going to start to feel the stretch migrate, the sensation, your proprioceptive sense, will start shifting out into the external rotators. That was actually my personal experience with this, and then I've seen a couple clients already who have had very similar experiences. So don't freak out too much. As long as the knee itself is not being annoyed, you're pretty good to go. Okay, so that having been said, I am now moving away from the legs, so I'm now trying to give myself more hip extension. So this is where, if you're like a golfer or a hockey player, actually more golf, hockey a little bit, but more golf, on your lead leg when you are following through on your swing, you need to be able to pivot on top of that lead leg, and that's internal rotation. So we need to be able to do that with hip extension. So now my trunk and my femur are basically in a straight line. So I'm here, I come down, and boy, does that feel good. So it's a really good stretch. If you're a goalie, this would also be a pretty good position because the butterfly save position requires that flare, right? So you need to get that leg flare out, which is in hip extension. So practicing that stretch to get that extension would obviously help. Give this a try. Make sure you never feel it in the knee. Make sure you experiment with a weight. If you're a bigger person, you may need heavier weights. And make sure you hold the stretches long enough to actually feel muscle adjust. So with this stretch, it seems like, for me, I can get away with quite a few minutes. But if you're a beginner, you've never done much stretching, you don't really know your body well, I would just limit it to 1 to 2 minutes on each side, maybe 2 to 3 sets, and that would be it. If you're more experienced, if you're really comfortable with how your body works and experimenting with stretches of longer lengths, then you know what to do with your body. Have fun with it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the best hip internal rotation stretch you've never seen. And now that you've seen it, I hope you enjoy the stretch. Remember to subscribe to Upright Health, and remember that pain sucks. Life shouldn't. Hey there, you caught me doing the other side. It's always a good idea to try to get your body pretty symmetrical, or as symmetrical as you can. Remember to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and check out the Upright Insider program if you want access to hundreds of exercise videos in our exercise library.